A city near the border in Southern California is fighting to keep illegals off the streets after the city council caved into pressure from far-left NGO activists. Here's One America's Pearson.
President Trump is wasting no time tackling America's southern border, a border that, for all intents and purposes, didn't exist when Biden was in office. Credible estimates put the totals near 20 million illegals that crossed in the last 4 years, with hundreds of thousands of known criminals, murderers, and violent cartel members now freely roaming in America. President Trump has made it his top priority to remove these threats from our nation, and he's off to a great start. But Democrats in cities all over the country are pushing back, many of them in so-called sanctuary cities, which illegally provide a safe haven for these monsters who prey on our citizens. The city of San Diego has become the #1 area for illegal crossings in the nation. And now the Board of Supervisors, without approval from the voters, decided the city will become a super sanctuary city, protecting violent criminals and murderers from deportation. That's bad enough, but other towns along the border are following suit, voting to fight back against President Trump and the rule of law and order. In El Cajon, another city near San Diego and the border, the city council just shot down an effort to allow the police to work with federal agents to deport illegal alien criminals from off the streets. The resolution was blocked in a 3-2 vote, and afterwards, activists who support illegal immigration erupted in cheers. Take a listen.
I have a second. Please vote.
And for the
Quiet. Excuse us. Can we have a quiet? Hey, quiet protocol to be followed, people. We need to finish the meeting. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay if you could be quiet, but you can also go outside and we'll be done in a few minutes.
Mayor, for the record, this motion fails with Councilmember Kendrick, Goble, and Mitchell voting no.
You can see we still have a long way to go to take back our country, but it's going to take leaders who aren't afraid of a fight to get it done. And speaking of that, here to discuss this with me now is the mayor of El Cajon, Bill Wells, the man who proposed the resolution in the first place. Bill, thanks for being on the show.
Nice to see you. So,
tell me about this resolution that you proposed. What was your goal and why was that so important?
Well, first off, I thought it would be an easy sell. What the goal was to declare that it would be our intention to work with the federal government and to honor their laws, the federal government's laws, and help them with any kind of immigration problems that they might have. Specifically, when we arrested somebody who was committing a crime that we would say maybe was a Venezuelan gang member, rather than just book them downtown and assume that they'd be out in the street in another 2 or 3 hours, it would be great to be able to call ICE or Border Patrol and say, hey, got this dangerous guy here, he's not a citizen, maybe you would like to come and talk to him before he gets booked and deport him. I thought that would be an easy sell. And I think it would have been, except that what happened was a bunch of these NGOs sent about 80 people to not talk common sense, to ignore what this was really about, and to tell the city council they were a bunch of fascists and Nazis and that we were going to be dragging children out of churches and their schools and dragging parents away from kids while they're trying to eat dinner at their dining room table.
So they packed the meeting?
Oh, they did, yeah.
Okay. I mean, but don't we have laws against illegal immigration? How is this not against the law? How can they get away with this?
They get away with it because of something called SB 54. In 2017, California passed a law that said when it comes to immigration, local municipalities are not allowed to do anything with the federal government. We're not allowed to call them, we're not allowed to talk to them, we're not allowed to even answer their questions. And here's where the rub is. They say that state law, SB 54, supersedes federal law. which, of course, the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution.
That's not how it works.
Would differ with that.
Right.
But it hasn't gone to the Supreme Court yet. And so until it gets shot down in the Supreme Court, they are contending that this is the law of the land and that municipalities and police officers will be punished if they cooperate with the feds.
So what's next for this? Do you have a plan B? I mean, how are we going to keep these criminals off the streets?
Yeah, I'm not deterred. We're going to keep going. I'm going to refashion this and bring it back to the council really in about a week and a half. And I think.
So you're not letting this go?
No. Here's my prediction. If you want me to come back and give you a victory report
Absolutely.
in 2 weeks, I think that's what's going to happen. Of course, people can vote the way they want, but I think some of the council members, upon really reflecting on it and looking what had happened as a result, and the position that they took, which I don't think they really meant to take.
They got bullied into it, kind of.
Yeah, I think they're regretting. I think there's buyer's remorse there, and I have a feeling we can get this passed. But we're still going to face the same hurdles. We're going to have a packed room full of activists, and there's going to be a lot of angry folks, and there might be even protests in the streets like we saw in Los Angeles and in downtown San Diego yesterday.
Well, then we just know who the enemies are. Because,
well, I've known who the enemies are for a long time.
Right, yeah, and then we can see them. But, I mean, you kind of made this point. Most of America voted for President Trump. We have a mandate from the voters to get rid of these people, and you brought that up. You said 57% of El Cajon voted for President Trump.
Yeah, one of the arguments was, hey, look at all these people here. We have to represent the people.
Right.
And I said, well, these are not representative of the people. These people are from all over the country. They're professional agitators.
Right.
If you really want to represent the people, look at who voted for Trump. If Trump had lost by 5%, I would understand that argument. But in my city, Trump got 57% of the vote. So I don't think people are ambiguous about what Trump wanted to do
want
with
at all.
Immigration. And I think people knew exactly who they were voting for, and they expect us to do the right thing.
I mean, something like 60% of the murders in Los Angeles are committed by illegal aliens. Why would these people want to keep these criminals on our streets and in our neighborhoods?
Well, I hate to be cynical, but there's quite a bit of money in it. Just like the homeless industrial complex, there's an immigrant industrial complex. And there's millions and billions of dollars going to these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations that
like those Catholic charities that we saw President Trump going after.
Yeah, and I think most of these NGOs are Democrat politicians who called their friends and said, what you need to do is get into the immigrant business, and we'll send you the contracts. And then when we're done and you've made a fortune, don't forget to give money back to the Democrat Party so they can remain in permanent power in California. And it's this vicious cycle, and I think it's incestuous and needs to stop.
So how bad is the situation in El Cajon? Does it have a big illegal immigrant population?
No, it's not been a giant problem, but it doesn't really generally manifest itself like a big problem. What happens is you look at places like New York and Chicago where it stays under wraps until a child is murdered, until, like in New York where that man was killed by the Venezuelan and Ecuadorian immigrant, and they came into his house and tortured him to death and stole his things. You know, this is just going to keep compounding and getting worse and worse and worse. And by the time you realize you've got a problem, your whole city is infested with this problem. And
it's bubbling under the surface.
I want to stop this right now. And, you know, there's only so much I can do.
Right.
But I can certainly be cooperative with the federal government.
Yeah. So speaking of that, have you talked to or have you been in contact with Trump's border chief, Tom Homan? Do you think he'll work with you on this?
Oh, I know he will. I went out, had lunch with him
Outstanding.
a couple of days after Christmas. And
so he's fully aware of this problem.
Yeah, let me tell you something. He is exactly the same person that you see on television. He's a tough street cop. He doesn't take any guff. And he has a singular obsession at this point with doing his job. And you know what? And it's not because of Trumpism or anything else. It's because he is sick to death of children being pulled into sex trafficking, our kids dying of fentanyl poisoning. He's got a mission. And he told me that you know, he will help us if we help him. And he also said he is definitely going to punish cities and municipalities that stand in his way.
I mean, the job is to protect The people. That's the American government's job, to protect the people, and they haven't been doing that.
It's every government's job.
That's it. That's all you have to do. That's all the government should be doing.
That's my first job as mayor, is to make sure that my people are kept as safe as possible. So by turning a blind eye to dangerous people that are in the United States illegally, I'm not doing my job. And people say, oh, it's only a few of them. Well, we've had 20 million.
It only takes a few.
We've had 20 million come in. What if 6% of those were dangerous criminal gang members? I mean, that's enough right there.
But it doesn't matter. Every single illegal alien who comes into our country erodes the rule of law. Every single one.
Yeah,
and if we want to get back our country, like people talk, we need to go back to how our country was. If you want to get back our country, the only way to do that is to remove every single one of them.
I agree. If you told, I don't know Laken Riley's family, but I would imagine her mother would say, it doesn't matter how many were in, one took my baby's life, and that's enough.
There was one that was really difficult for me when I read about this little girl named Maddie Hines, who was a little 3-year-old girl who was killed by an illegal alien drunk driver.
Yeah.
And I've got a 3-year-old girl, and it's just, they should not be here. That's it, period, end of story. And these people will be alive today if they weren't here. So it's just disgusting. But going back to the border here in San Diego, we've seen thousands of troops, well, maybe 1,500 troops coming down to the border in San Diego. I think another 1,500 or more federal agents are supposed to be going down there. They said they had a mile-long line of trucks heading out of Pendleton going down to the border. Do you think some of these federal agents could end up working with you in El Cajon and these other cities to get these people out of here?
I would guess that that the United States military probably won't be going into the cities. I think they're going to stay at the border. But I do believe, and Tom Homewood told me that he's going to send an army of ICE agents and Border Patrol to come. One of the things I've heard is that they're talking about deputizing, like perhaps my police department, and giving them immunity from any kind of state prosecution. That would be a good thing. What I suggested to him is, if you want this to go away, cut the money that you send to California. Stop the Health and Human Services money.
That would do it
stop
overnight.
The transportation money, the housing money, and I think California will last about 4 days before they knuckle under. Just like we saw with Mexico
and Canada and all the rest of them.
You know, everybody talks tough.
You cut the money off.
Well, California is $78 billion in the red right now.
I think more than that.
Yeah, it depends who you talk to. And, you know, when you're running a deficit like that, you count on that federal money.
I think we've got about 1.3 trillion unfunded liabilities in this state.
Oh, when you're talking pension?
Or just everything, you know, that's real debt. So if you cut that off or threaten them with that, that'll probably get things done. Newsom speaks money. That's all he speaks.
Well, it's not even ideology at that point. It's just can you run the state without federal money? You can't. Yeah. There's nothing in the reserves. So to me, that's a logical thing for Congress to do. Say, hey, you know what? You want to commit suicide? Okay, but we're not paying for it. Do it on your own dime.
Yeah. The rest of us who are living here who are sane citizens are going to suffer until that gets done. But
we're suffering already.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, you got to go in and have the surgery. It's going to be painful, but it's what you have to do to save your life.
So what's the outlook, zooming out a little bit, what's the outlook, do you think, for the rest of California? Do we have a chance to get our state back under control?
You know, there's a lot of talk about that right now. If you had asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said probably impossible. But there is light. And California moved more towards Trump than any other state in the union. We're just so big, and there's so many people living in the cities that we didn't win. But there's a quiet revolution happening in California. People want to move to common sense, and they want to jettison this insane woke leftism. The fires certainly brought a lot of people around that you didn't think would be brought around, and I think we're not done with crisis. And I think eventually, if people feel enough pain, they'll rise up and take their state back.
I mean, we've been living in an ivory tower. Well, not you and me, but a lot of these people in the mega cities have been living in ivory towers, and now their ivory tower is literally burned down. So I think they're coming back to reality a little bit and seeing, hey, this picture isn't as rosy as we thought it was.
I hope so. I do want to remind people that it was only in the early 90s that California was a Republican state.
Yeah, it's incredible. You look at voting maps from back in the 90s, the whole state was red. It was incredible. It's unbelievable. And then just, what, 20 years ago, it really changed, and people don't realize this, it really changed, started changing for the worse in the 1980s when Reagan passed the amnesty bill and just made all those illegal citizens. That's when it really started changing.
Another statistic that's interesting is if you took Los Angeles out of the mix, Trump wins California.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody realizes that.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's just carve Los Angeles out of the state, let them do their own thing, let them crash and burn, and save the rest of us.
I went to college in Los Angeles. I can't imagine living there now.
No.
It's a hellhole.
It is. Yeah. Third world country.
And I don't know what it's going to take to wake people up, but like I said, the fires, I think, woke
If
up.
that doesn't wake them up, I mean, what will?
Well, there could be more coming. I don't know.
God, I hope not. So, okay, so as far as your resolution and everything else, is there anything that people can do to help you, to help our state, to help what's going on? What can people do?
Well, you know what? I always appreciate when people pray for me and pray for what we're doing. And pray
We can
for
do that.
Pray for the state of California. You know, you can send letters in to the city of El Cajon. You can,
Let them know
you
what's,
can go on their
how they
website
really
and see everybody's email, and you can tell people how you tell the council members how you feel about it. But again, I think we're going to be able to fix this, so don't be disheartened.
Great. Outstanding. All right, well, Bill Wells, thank you for coming on. We
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it, and we will all pray for you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.